المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن الناس من يتخذ من دون الله أندادا يحبونهم كحب الله والذين آمنوا أشد حبا لله ولو يرى الذين ظلموا إذ يرون العذاب أن القوة لله جميعا وأن الله شديد العذاب. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before I get into the discussion that I intended for tonight, there were a couple of issues that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, especially the parents in our community. It is again for everyone, but it is especially for parents, and I'll explain. Some of you may be aware or should be aware that we have classes every Friday afternoon and evening, Arabic and Quran, as well as Islamic studies, a little bit of Arabic, mostly Quran and Islamic studies. We do have them every Friday afternoon and evening. Announcements are there for those who are not aware. Please do see the brothers, Brother Muhsin or Sayyid Muhsin or the Brother Hassan, or in the ladies' side, Sister Debbie or Sister Razia, or any of the organizers. Please do see them. Make sure you do receive their messages and communication regarding the school, as it is very, very important. And again, I say, especially for parents, but it is for everyone, because the best of you are those who teach the Quran and learn it, or learn the Quran and teach it. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. So if you have the ability to teach, it is one of the most rewarding acts. In fact, it is the acts of prophets. It is the act of the Prophet of Islam, and one of his titles, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, is that he is muallim, yuallimuhum al-kitaba wal-hikmah. One of the titles is in fact a teacher. So if we want to follow suit and be like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we need to teach. And what a better opportunity to teach our children, especially in an environment, in a society where if we do not actively participate in teaching them our religion and our principles and our ethics and morals, they will be lost in the society. They will be lost, and they will have no principles, because unfortunately, unless they are in some sort of what certain people call organized religions, unless they're part of those religions, most of the time they will end up having no principles, because To believe that it is money that makes the world go around is no principles. To believe that it is basically it is based on material things, material gain and loss that we make our decisions in life is no principles. So we have to be very careful, because God forbid if we allow our children and ourselves, in fact, to melt and drown in the society that we're living in without our very valuable Islamic principles, very soon we will have no principles, wal-'ayadu billah, and that is a situation where, God forbid, Quran describes as they are like animals, yet they are worse. إِنْهُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. Because animals are all about enjoying their basically food and drink and desires. يَأْكُلُونَ وَيَتَمَتَّعُونَ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ الْأَنْعَامِ. But God forbid if we become like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالنَّارُ مَثْوًى لَهُمْ. Hellfire is their final abode. And we seek refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from such a state. So we need to be consciously and actively working towards keeping our Islamic principles and even getting better, not just being happy with where we are and what we are, rather improving that. And a lot of that happens through a community coming together, classes, discussions, book club, all of the things that are available to us, we need to take advantage of them. It is more important than seeking sustenance for our family and surviving in the physical sense. Unfortunately, many of us, we get so busy surviving in the physical sense that we end up neglecting our real survival, surviving as a human being, surviving with our ethics and morals and humanity, which is the most important part. So inshallah, it is a reminder to all parents and all members of the community that we need to participate in those classes. And once a schedule is set, we need to make sure we adhere to that schedule and make it more significant and more important than other appointments and schedules that we have. It is very unfortunate that comes to our academic schools or comes to our work, we have to be punctual because it has to do with our livelihood and certain things that basically relate to this world, today's or this life here. But comes to our Islamic school, comes to our Islamic programs, we show up, we don't show up, we show up late, it doesn't make a difference. It should not be like this. In fact, it should be the other way around. For all of us, it should be the other way around. And just so that you know, the school was scheduled 6 p.m. And we have 2 classes basically. From 6 we start, we have the prayers in between, and we have 2 classes, and they do have an assembly. So if that is not suitable, you need to communicate with the management, you need to communicate with the organizers and say this is too early and it's not suitable, so change that. We would like it to be, for instance, 6:30. However, to not participate or to undermine the value of this Islamic school and these establishments and these efforts that the teachers and the organizers put is definitely not the right attitude, especially of Muslims who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders them to seek knowledge, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says it is an obligation upon us to seek knowledge. طلب العلم فريضة. It is an obligation, and ilm that is farida, most importantly and most significantly, is the knowledge of our faith, our religion, because it is what is going to prepare us for the real life. We are here in a temporary abode, and eventually we have to depart and go to the real life. So we need to make sure that that is the priority. If there are any questions on this issue, any clarifications, any suggestions, please go ahead and do that before I get into the discussion that I had for tonight. No questions. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? No suggestions? Huh? Okay. I'll assume that everyone understood, and inshallah next week at 6 o'clock we'll have everybody here. Or is that everybody? Huh? Not gonna happen? Huh? If that, again, I said, I want to know, we would like to know if that's too early, if you would like it to start at 6:30 so that you can participate, please let us know so we can make sure that at least all the parents with their children are here on time, inshallah. Okay. Yes. Yes. Somebody? Okay, so you suggest to make it 6:30? Okay. Okay. Any well, if we go by basically always it's those who speak out that are heard. So we heard you and nobody else. So I'm assuming that 6:30 is the better time. So inshallah, if any of the managing board or I don't see them here. Okay, so I guess we can go by 6:30 if that's what is the preference. Are they going to the highest level they can participate during the lecture? The younger ones, I guess they would have to, maybe they can shorten the class after all. So that's something that we can discuss it with them. If they really want to participate, then they can shorten it and finish by the time the lecture starts. So they finish at 8 o'clock, then they can participate in the lecture or something, which can work because 6:30 to 8 o'clock, you still have 2 sessions easily for the younger ones. So I think that would still work. Okay. Inshallah, inshallah. And I would suggest that we would soon have a parent-teacher meeting as well to basically make sure everyone is on the same page and there's good communication between the two, inshallah. Okay, yes, sir. Yeah. 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 Achieve. Yeah. Yeah. Structured classes on. Definitely, the suggestion or the question was regarding having, or why not have a Saturday or a Sunday program which is longer and so on. There are a couple of organizations that have a Sunday school which is available for those who are basically dedicated to bring their children. The unfortunate thing is most of our community, they want they want a quick fix, a quick shot. One day we come, we get everything in terms of our religion, and that's it. We're good for the week until next week. If it's up to me, I would have 3-4 days a week that we get together and have discussions and classes and other things that are even just the social aspect of getting together, praying Salatul Jama'ah more frequently and so on. But I think until the people, maybe it's not easy for some that are traveling long distance, that may be also an issue, but also I guess the priorities need to eventually change, inshallah. So I'll move off this topic, inshallah. For further discussion will be in a parent-teacher meeting, which I hope that you would register so that you can receive communication and basically participate in meetings and so on. The very brief, sorry, you had a comment? Yes.
You are right that during this week it's not easy for those who are living far from here, but I was thinking that maybe during the weekend, if they are interested, they can make it.
They can make it, yes.
And you are thinking that you are busy and you are not available. That is why the mosque is closed and it's only Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether your schedule is open to, during the weekend to have the prayer during the weekend.
We can if there is, if people would participate and we can have some sort of a program or something, we can definitely do some things during the weekend. I mean, there are some programs already in the community, within the larger community on Sunday. Saturday could work. Saturday, if the community wants to do something on Saturdays, get together, do something, that definitely can be done, especially Saturday afternoon or even morning or something. So that, inshallah, I would suggest that if we can arrange for a specific meeting for this discussion, unless you suggest that this is the good time. Otherwise, we'll have a specific meeting later, inshallah. We'll announce a specific meeting for this discussion. Please make sure you do register your phone number or your email so that you can receive communication and you're aware of those meetings so that you can participate and raise your concerns, share your opinion and suggestions and so on. Back to the very brief discussion. I don't want to keep you much longer. We already took quite a bit of time on this. The ayah that, in fact, I recited in the beginning from Surah Al-Baqarah 165 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, amongst the people there are some that they have beloved ones. I'm paraphrasing here. Beloved concepts, things that they are attached to. They love them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way they love or the way they should love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ, the way they should love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all again about priorities. We were discussing this earlier, subhanallah, the ayah is very much in line with what we just discussed. So amongst the people, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَنْدَادًا. It's almost like opposition or competitors. That they love them the way they should love. يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. As for the believers, they are stronger in their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doesn't mean that they love other things besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. That is not what it means. Rather, it means their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more than what these people love the competition, love besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because once you find the real love, or once you find love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the real love, and therefore it is going to be stronger than anything else. In fact, one of our great scholars and urafa, his students heard him, and they said that he had what they call a sayha, that he reaches a state at night when he's doing his ibadah and dhikr, and when he's in connection and communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to say, where are the kings? Where are those rich people in this dunya to feel that or to taste what I'm tasting in terms of this pleasure of communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? أين الملوك وأبناء الملوك? Where are they? They can never taste what I am tasting. He would not give it for anything. I'll come to some of its application inshallah through a hadith from one of our Imams, Imam Sadiq or Imam Baqir alayhi salam, when one of his companions says to him, I suffer from poverty, then the Imam proved to him that he is the richest man in the world if he thought of what he has. In any case, I'll get to that inshallah shortly. The priorities of certain people are in the wrong place. Therefore, certain individuals or certain concepts or certain material attractions are more dear to them, or they are so dear to them the way they should love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question I ask my brothers and sisters is, when it comes to the concept of love, what sort of understanding do we have of that concept of love? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of it as an important thing. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. What is our understanding? Are we speaking of, and especially this week, people celebrating, the Valentine's Day, talking about love and so on and so forth. Is that what the concept of love means? Do we wait for certain people? And in fact, if we look at the origin of this concept, Valentine's Day, it was more about sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a martyrdom. But that's no longer the case, because somebody was martyred for basically facilitating marriages and so on, the way the religion, his Christianity, taught him in the Roman Empire, and he was killed. He was persecuted and eventually killed, and therefore that date was significant, and eventually the church decided, one of the popes decided that they would remember that day, they would have a feast and remember him and his sacrifice. But today it is no longer the case, and it has become, in fact, a very sinful day, if I can say, for many people, even speaking of sinful relationships and calling it or using the excuse of love. In any case, what is our understanding of love? And this concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَنْدَادًا يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ. What is this يُحِبُّونَهُمْ, this hub? It is a drive that either drives one towards the real love and the real beloved, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we belong to Him. He is the real lover. He is more loving to us than our parents. He is more loving to us than a loving mother, as the narration of Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, when he saw that mother and how the son was treating her, yet her showing him so much love. And in the end, he asked, Ya Rab, what have you created? He says, you see that love? My love for my servants is more than that. In some narrations, it says 70 times more, or multiples. 70 is an expression of a big number. Okay? It's 70 versus 69 or 70 versus 71 or 100. It is basically way more than what we can imagine. This is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the real love. That is the real drive that makes certain people abandon their bed in the evening because they want to communicate with their beloved. On the other hand, those who do not taste that are in search of that, and they stumble across the wrong concepts. This is the reality of it. You know, they say empty mind is what? Devil's workshop. If the mind if the intellect is focused, it will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it's not seeking knowledge and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be in the wrong direction. Devil, shaitan, will start using it and utilizing it. That's one example. Now we come to love. If the heart is empty of the real love, that is when the wrong concept would come our way, and we get attached to them thinking that this is what I'm searching for. When in reality the heart is looking for the real love. The heart is not satisfied with all these fake loves that we think this is love. The heart is not satisfied with loving money, for example. And it knows that this is temporary. How does it know? Does anybody think that they're going to take their wealth with them to their grave? Nobody thinks that they can do that. Even the fara'ina, the pharaohs in ancient Egypt, they did not think that they would take it to their graves. They thought that they would be resurrected, so they were asking to be buried with their wealth for the resurrection, not for the grave. So we all know that we will depart and we will leave behind the wealth, the money, and all the belongings. In the poem from Imam Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He describes those who are accumulating wealth and so on. He says all of that, they will leave it behind. And then they will go and realize that the homes that they built and the wealth that they accumulated, they had to leave behind, and now they went to a place that they did not establish, they did not prepare for. The heart knows that. Yet, because of the lack of the real love, the heart sometimes get attached to certain things, like a child getting attached to a toy. You know, the children, you see them sometimes attached to a toy. Sometimes attached to a blanket. I don't know if you've seen them. Sometimes attached to a pillow. They take it with them anywhere. Okay? Or a certain doll or something. That, at that age, we understand, okay, that child is trying to feel some emotional side in their heart. And I don't want to get into the psychological reason behind it and so on. That is another discussion altogether. However, at that age, we understand it. And their intellect is very limited, therefore we don't blame them. But as an old person, now if a young boy gets attached to a certain, say, car, all he can think of is this car. He wants it. He wants a specific car, and when he gets it, he makes sure it's well polished, clean, nice, he's always carrying a rag, and anytime he comes to the car, he's scrubbing it. Or a motorcycle, let's say, okay? He's making it shiny and so on. You look at them and think, okay, his heart is attached to this. You understand? They're young. But as we mature and get closer to our 40, and you may ask, why 40? We have narrations that that's when we reach the maturity intellectually. As we mature and we are getting closer to that, or even past that, if we're still stuck loving certain material things like a shiny car or a motorcycle, or loving homes and material things, there is a problem. And what is the issue? And why do we behave like this? It is because we lack the real love. If we recognized the real love, all of these things would mean nothing. We would know that this is a temporary thing. Whether it's a car, or a house, or anything else in this material world, we're going to leave behind. And as we mature, we would realize that every day I'm getting a day closer to my death. When is my death? I don't know, but I am getting closer to it. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be any time. But every day I'm getting closer to it. The clock is ticking, and every second that passes, I'm 1 second closer to my death. That's the reality. So I know that all of these things, eventually, I'm going to let go. Imam Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He addresses the people of the cemetery, the graveyard. And he asks them, first he gives them the good news, or he gives them his news, and he asks them for their news. The narration says that he stopped on his way back, if I'm not mistaken, from Siffin. He stopped and he started speaking to them. He said to them, "O the people of the empty homes, Diyar al-Khaliya, O the lonely ones, let us tell you what we have as news. As for the property, it has been distributed. Whatever you had, whatever you left behind, people took. Somebody took it and it's gone. It's not yours anymore. In the mirath, we cannot, in Islam, you cannot even give in your will, perhaps that's an indication. In your will, you cannot have control over more than a third of your property. Not even a will you can have for over the third. The other 2/3 have to be distributed according to Islamic law. You have no control over it. A third perhaps given so that you can, do certain things that matter. If you want to say, okay, in this third, please spend it for charity. In Islam, in this country, somebody gets angry with his children, he writes his will, everything to the dogs. I've seen that. Okay, or, I don't know, animal rescue, whatever, organization. That's not allowed in Islam. He can do that with a third. You can give charity, you can give to prayers, to fasting, to Hajj, whatever, a third. The other 2/3 get distributed according to Islamic law. So you don't have control over what is left. And ultimately you don't, because you leave and it's up to those left behind to deal with it the way you like or in any other way. أما أموال فقد قسمت. And then he says, وَأَمَّا النِّسَاء فَقَدْ زُوِّجَتْ. Your wife got married. Or wives, whatever, one or two here. Nisa, plural. Wives got married. Everything that you have. Then he says, what is your news? And then he tells his companions, by God, if they were allowed, لَوْ أُذِنَ لَهُمْ, if they were allowed to respond, they would say one thing. They would say, وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. Increase not in wealth, not in money, but taqwa, God consciousness, relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If our hearts were to speak to us, and I'm not speaking of the physical heart, they would say to us, let go of these things. Our ruh, our nafs would say to us, let go of these things. Find the real love. Don't get stuck with loving a piece of material, whether it be even a concept or a country. Hubbud diyar, it's a good thing to love, but not as an opposition to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll come to the final thing that I wanted to discuss, which is min dunillah. So what about loving my children? What about loving my spouse? What about loving my parents? What about loving perhaps, the people, community? What about loving home country? Hubbul awtani min al-iman. Loving your home is part of iman. What about these kinds of love? As long as it's in line with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not min dunillah. And I'll explain. If I love my children for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is not min dunillah. Loving parents for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is not min dunillah. That is in line. But loving them regardless, even if they are enemies of God, you still love them? No. You may have, care for them, treat them well as Islam teaches us, but you love in line with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, your love increases as you would realize that the person or the individual is closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your love increases for them. The love of Nabiullah Yaqub ala nabina wa alihi wa alayhi salam for his son Yusuf ala nabina wa alihi wa alayhi salam was more than his brothers. Why? Not because he's his son. All of them are his sons. Not because he's the son of a specific wife. None of that. It had to do with his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the wali of Allah. The closer his son is, or any of his children are, the more he loves them. And this is how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in his love for his daughter Fatima salamullah alayha, or for Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, not a blood relationship. And this is our love for them. Our love for Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because my parents love them. No. It is because they are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore I love them. That's how it should be. And this is what brings me to the narration that I shared part of it in the beginning, that somebody was complaining to either Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, was complaining his poverty, his financial status. And the Imam says to him, do not say I am poor. Why? He asked him. He said, if you were offered whatever is on this earth, all the wealth on this earth, you were offered all that, only to let go of us Ahlul Bayt. He was a lover of Ahlul Bayt. He said, all what you have to do is say, I denounce them, I don't want them. Huh? To let go of our love. Would you do that? He said, no, I will not do that. I paused for a second for a reason. I want us to ask ourselves that question. Everyone here. And I promise this is my last part. I want you to think about this for a second or for moments. If you were offered ad-dunya wa ma fiha, everything in this dunya, you were offered, you can have it. Huh? Whatever matters to you, you can have it. If a certain country matters to you, status in it, you can have it. If a certain status, position, job, you can have it. More, you can have. You can be the president. You can have so much wealth. Unlimited. The only thing you have to do is to let go of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Which ultimately means what? Let go of our faith. Let go of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the reality of it. Our love for Ahlul Bayt is because of our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They get us closer to Him, we love them. So I don't want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these things. Is it the case that if I'm offered all these things, I'll let go? This man said, I would never let go. So the Imam said to him, you're the richest. Huh? You're so rich and you call yourself poor? Think about what we have. We have something so valuable that it is the heart that is rich or poor. You can have all the money in the world and act like a poor person because your heart is poor. And you can be so financially poor, yet your heart is rich. If you have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of Ahlul Bayt, nothing else has real value compared to that. Therefore you are rich regardless of our financial status or our status in this dunya. This is the real love and this is the real valuable thing in dunya that we should attach ourselves to. And we need to test ourselves often with anything. Test yourself. Anything that you really want, ask yourself a question. If I can get this, but I have to let go of akhirah, my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love of Ahlul Bayt, which one I prefer more? Test yourself. And based on that, adjust if need be, so that we have our priorities right and we are heading in the right direction. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fill our hearts with love for Him. It should be more than anything else. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our love for Him and for anything that get us closer to Him. And those who are closer to Him, we ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. There are any questions, maybe 2 minutes or so for questions? No questions? Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, let's remember all marhumin with al-Fatiha مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.